Oh, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is the, as I messed that up, excuse me for coughing, this is Season 2, Episode 8 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, and it should come out on March 18th, 2019. I'm not going to go through all the flourishing. You've heard me flounder through this before. Let's just get straight into the beer. So we are going to drink the Double Barley Double Bubbel. It is from Double Barley Brewing Company from Smithfield, North Carolina. You know, hey, Smithfield.
Yeah.
It is a barrel-aged North Carolina beer. It says, our Belgian double aged with Biltmore Estate limited release Zinfandel barrels. This combination imparts subtle notes of cherries, vanilla, spices, oak into a rich, creamy, flavorful ale. It is 8.8% ABV, and it doesn't have an IBU rating on it. It also says, Double Barley Brewing shares a love for craft beer, the community, and a desire to bring them together. Check us out at doublebrewing.com. But, yeah, so let's talk about it, because we actually tried to make a double at one point in time.
Yeah. So did it... Well, no, we made a triple.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We made a triple.
So is this wine barrels or are these bourbon barrels?
They are wine barrels.
Yeah, I thought. I don't like this. it's why my little... Yeah, it's from Smithfield.
So I didn't know. I didn't know it was wine barrels.
Yeah.
So, well, like or not, what do you get out of it when you drink it?
So, I do get a lot of the flavors they're talking about, and there is a sweetness to it from the wine. Or I guess maybe sweetness isn't the right word, but it is that very, like, red winey sort of flavor to it. There's that richness there. But that's the part I don't like.
It's not very beery, is it?
It's not even not being very beery. It's this mixture of these, like, savory notes of, you know, all the stuff from the beer and from the double, and then with like a coating of this winey sweetness to it, tastes too much like medicine to me. Like, I feel like they've tried to grape flavor away the beer. Like, the same thing you do with, like... Especially because I got a kid now, and, like, you always get that medicine on your fingers and you taste it later, you know? Like, it just feels like it's covered up. It's like, it's not the beer, it's wine. And it's like, it's not, though.
It's not at all. So, this beer is... I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I got it because it looked interesting, and it was from Smithfield. I don't hate that. So I feel like it's well crafted. Yeah.
So I'll say this: I'm not a big fan of doubles, but the beer parts of this I really like. If it was just the beer, I would not mind drinking that bottle. But I think the wine barrel really kind of takes away from it.
I actually I like the craft of it, and I like the cherry flavors and the wine notes of it. I just don't like the way it melds with the double.
I think individually these two things are probably good.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually a really good way to put it. This tastes like a mixed drink that's gone bad.
Yeah.
Like when you think, hey, what if I mix this and this together? That'll be good, right? And you taste it, that wasn't a good decision. And you throw it out and you drink what's left of the two things you just mixed. It does kind of have that feel to it, that this isn't... some of the parts are better than the whole.
Yeah. I feel like if I was going to buy this again, I would look for a non barrel aged beer. Just because I would look for it to see what the individual part are. I've had the Zinfandel from Biltmore Estate that they aged the and I can definitely feel, like, I can definitely taste the Zen flavors that the Biltmore Estate put the Biltmore Estate has in its wine in this. So like there's a certain familiarity I have with it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of nice. If you like wine barrel aged beers, it's also kind of nice. I don't think that it's terrible. They're not my favorite. I had a Founder's beer that was a Cabernet cask beer, and I liked it okay. And I've had a couple of other like wine, aged beers, and the problem I have with all of these is that I feel like if I want wine, I want the notes and the fruitiness and everything of wine, then I'm going to go for wine.
Yeah.
And I'm not going for beer. But it does, I think it also could be the kind of beers that they're doing this with, because generally it's like, doubles and triples and things like that. Or like amber ales or things like that. I wonder if it was maybe. I wonder how that would affect like an IPA or something like that, because I don't think I've ever had one. I'm sure that people are making them. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I wonder how it would affect an IPA, and if that would maybe, because of the citrus flavors of an IPA, if the wine overpowers the hops, may cancel out the bitterness of the hops or cancel that mouthfeel out or something.
Maybe. Yeah, it'd be interesting, especially interesting to try with you because of your reaction to hops. And we don't really know, is that a genetic thing? It's like a genetic marker like mine with cilantro that you just can't overpower because it's just like almost like a chemical thing to it. Or if it's just, I really just have a bad aversion to that flavor. It's like just taste buds.
Yeah.
But, I will say this. I've yet to have a wine beer like barrel sort of thing go really well for me. But I've had several wine beer mixes that are great.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's just something about how you do the barrel age, how it imparts those flavors, how much of it gets put in, or even sometimes how little of it gets put in, depending on like how often that barrel has been used. Is the break here, because I've had several mixed drinks that are like 50% wine, 50% beer, and they're just delicious.
I agree with that. And especially if you're talking about like Radler type drinks and things like that, where you have a lighter beer with like soda, or a lighter beer with like a lemonade, that same sort of like mixture with a wine is really nice. So,
I think the best one I've had is I had a stout mixed with champagne, and that was amazing.
I bet it was, especially if it was like a milk stout or something.
I think it was Guinness and then just whatever champagne they had like on tap. So probably not like a really great one, but it was delicious.
I am going to go back and say the more I drink of this, the less of a like strong reaction I'm having to it. So it's like my taste buds are getting used to it. I don't want to make it sound like I would never drink this again. This is not the Laguntas Triple X or any of those other things that I'm like, nope, I'm drinking the rest of this just so I can be like, man, this sucks.
And that's the end of it.
Ever drink this. I'm searing it into my mind. This, the more I drink of it, the more pleasant it is, but it's because my tongue is getting used to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, we know that's a thing, that as your tongue kind of gets coated, it doesn't react as heavily. I mean, the same thing for me. As I was getting near the bottom of my sniffer, it wasn't as bad a reaction as when I began. But for like the reaction I had to the last beer we drank, where it's like, oh, this is really acidic.
Yeah.
But, I can deal with that. I just wasn't expecting that much acid. It was like, this is not a great blend of flavors.
So let's talk about the Dollar Shave Club trial kits. Have you signed up for Dollar Shave Club?
I have, but I haven't received my trial kit yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what you think about it. Did you use the link that I sent? I'll be interested to see how that works out too. So I got after that I spent like $40. We normally order like every couple months, order about $10 worth of stuff from Dollar Shave Club, like some razors and a couple other things. But I saw that they were doing trial kits, and I know I'm going on a trip next week. So I thought, not next week, the week after next. But I thought, hey, I'll take some of these trial kits because they're kind of the right size. They've got like an astringent and like this stuff, and they've got some beard oil that I was interested to try. And I've already started trying like the beard oil and things like that. They got some pomade that I might put in my beard, but it's good stuff. I'm really happy with most of the things that I've gotten from them. So I just brought it up to say they're expanding to more than just like shaving stuff.
Yeah,
even though it's Dollar Shave Club. And
well, they had a sister company there for a little while that was like, what even was it? Was it the Beard Club or something like that?
there is a Dollar Beard Club. I don't think it's by the same people.
No, but like I could be wrong on this. I know there are other shave clubs. I was fairly certain they had a sister one because I remember watching commercials where it started off as the Dollar Shave commercial, then it flipped over and said, "But maybe you're not into that. Maybe you're a manly man," like that sort of thing. You know,
I think it's I think it was like the products. It wasn't.
It could be. It could be that they were. I knew there were two different websites, but that's just like could be facing out. It could all just be the same LLC and all that.
Yeah. So they've got some stuff that I'm going to try, and when I come back, I'll talk about it. But I want to say, I've got these things. I've got like their they've got like a pepper shampoo and some beard oil. I've already been trying. Their beard oil is actually pretty good. I made my own for a while. Their beard oil does not smell as strongly as my beard oil, which is probably good because my beard oil is almost like a very heavy cologne. The recipe that I went by. If I ever make beard oil again, I'll probably try to make it more like theirs.
Gotcha.
Which has a very pleasant, like very light aroma. But it also it's very. I mean, like, I'm touching my beard just thinking about it, but it really, like, between the leave-in conditioner and the beard oil, it really helps to soften your beard if you use those products. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. We'll talk more about it when I come back from my trip. Let's talk about and I marked out new world of software-defined networking because really we've been in a world of software-defined networking where that's become a huge thing over the past 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And really within the last 3, it's become a big thing. But every company out there that does networking equipment, if they're still doing traditional networking, are finding some. They've still got customers. I'm not saying they're failing, but they're finding it more difficult to do networking.
Yeah.
And so since that's kind of our bread and butter, even though we're doing development for networking now more than just traditional networking, software-defined networking, I think has, we have companies like Ubiquiti.
Yeah.
And then you have like Meraki and some other places. And the way that they do SDN is, more like development first, networking second. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is I was thinking about this week. I don't have any complaints with using Ubiquiti or something like that for like small business or like a home office type deal. But really, when you're talking about multiple sites, you've got these big networks where you need to have special routing and connections and things like that. The complexity that happens there is so much beyond just being able to set up a static route and say this work. I mean, you need to be able to control certain variables that you can't. When you're thinking about routing protocols, why were routing protocols created? It's not because we just wanted to make networks super complex. It was because networks were complex and we needed something to be able to manage them easier. Now that routing protocols could become easier, but a lot of these software-defined things, they pick a routing protocol, or they don't really develop for all the different ones that are out there, and that's still a place that traditional networking has software-defined networking in its clutch. And when you have hybrid networks for software-defined networking, that's helpful. So, like if you have like a traditional switch that can be controlled by an orchestrator or can use something like netconf to be able to configure, then you've got the ability to add some of these features that aren't necessarily there in more development first software defined networking.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the advantages really of the hybrid approach, and that's almost the way I see networking going in the future, most companies aren't going to use these true software-defined network unless they create their own software.
Yeah.
They're going to go for hybrid approaches where they can buy, Cisco or Juniper or something like that. They can get a probably feature-packed but less expensive device, and just as long as they have the right, netconf ability, they'll be able to control it through whatever controller they have.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think we're still quite a ways off from traditional networking going away, because just the way automation works and how long development life cycles are, you can automate the simple stuff fairly quickly. You can translate into software the simpler things fairly simply, because there's already a layer of network programming you have to do on top of these stacks. So all you're doing is virtualizing some of these stacks. But that's just kind of for the simple stuff. It's hard, and oftentimes really not worth it in the beginning when you're thinking about replacing a solution, to try and now go completely software oriented or go completely automate specialized systems. So I think you're right. I mean, I think we're going to hit a time, if we're not already there, where your basic vanilla router switch are starting to be swapped out for software driven versions of it. Things that are performing simple solutions like that, 15 port switch you're going to put on the floor to run the cables through to all the cubicles, like that. Those sort of things will get replaced. But when you're talking about really intense load balancing, you're talking about your backbone firewalls that carry all your stuff, when you're talking about your real core network and not your various delivery devices, those are so high powered, those are put under so much use, have to be so flexible. The development time on something like that is very long and very strenuous, and the amount of testing that has to go into that, you got to think, I'm going to go into software networking, I'm going to be a software-defined networking company, I'm going to be somebody like Meraki. You don't start with that stuff. Yeah. And they haven't. And until there are real good solutions for things like that, many years from now, when the time for those technologies to mature, those things aren't going away. We can't just say, hey, replace the entirety of my backbone right now with all this software stuff in these massive networks, because of how complicated they are.
Well, I mean, there are already ISPs and places like Google and stuff that are trying to replace their backbones with software-defined networking, and they've done it successfully. But they have to have very complex, very specialized orchestrators and managers.
They've got an internal solution. They've sat down and said, "Hey, I'm Google. I'm going to make something for me, Google." But we don't have companies pre-packaging and selling those solutions like they do at places like, Cisco. Cisco will walk in and say, I've got a piece of hardware for every need you could have. Software-defined companies don't have that yet. They say, well, we've got pre-packaged solutions for 80% of your use cases.
Well, but I mean, Cisco and Juniper, they're both looking at these sort of things, and they are both creating.
They are
software-defined, subscription-based software-defined things, but they're hybrid. They're not. They're not
they're not fully software-defined. Yeah, and I mean, we're not there yet. Right now today, I know we're going to get there. I mean, it's going to happen.
I'm not 100% sure about that though.
Really?
Yeah, because what you were talking about with the desktop switch. I had this whole speech that I talked about desktop switches not working in big companies, and you said you agree on it. I don't even want to go back and talk about it. It was brilliant. It was awesome.
So yeah, the gist of it is with what current features that are currently out right now, it is not really feasible to do large and complicated networking because of reliance on static routes and subpar protocols that run the routing and things like that. I 100% agree for the today that it's not really an option. That's why we don't see it. There's some specialized solutions coming from certain really big tech companies, but It's not the standard, and I don't think it'll be the standard for a while. But I think we are going to get there. And I agree with that completely. My reasoning for it is everything we do in networking, really everything we do in most of IT, not all of IT, but certainly networking, it is already software driven.
Yeah.
We already have the OSs we run on that. Even our hardware-based solutions have software modules that run them. So I don't think it's been worth the development time or the return on it to develop a lot of these things yet in software-defined networking.
Yeah.
But at some point, we're going to get there. I'm not sure when. It'll certainly be within my career. I just don't know when it'll happen. But there's going to come a point where almost everything is software-driven. And the only place I can see us deviating from that is at the initial emergence of a new hardware technology. When we hit maybe a new medium, or we make some big breakthrough in processing or quantum computing or something like that, it is probably faster and more efficient to write the overlay in the hardware module than it is to have to scale it up all the way, because writing in low-level languages for the direct hardware that's not easy. I'm not trying to say it's easy.
Yeah.
But it's easier to start there and build up to having something like, this is all virtual now, as opposed to, hey, look, these amazing hardware engineers just made this cool, awesome thing. I'll just digitize it real quick.
Yeah.
Those conversations don't happen.
Well, and normally you have to have some sort of virtualization stack to be able to digitize it and things like that.
Oh, yeah, you have to understand it really well. You have to be able to replicate it. Ultimately, if it's a hardware sort of situation, like, we break into quantum computing real well, we'd have to already have quantum computers to run the VMs on, otherwise, because that's a physical state thing, you can't go into it. So, I can definitely see the push. I can definitely see it's not going away. It's just going to pick up traction. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're going to be there in the next 5 years.
So I think it's possible for us to be there in the next 5 years. I think the feature set that we have to have across the board to make it happen is we have to have non-redistributable routing protocols. Like, we have to have native support for multiple routing protocols, and you can just choose the one that you want. Yeah. It's got to have BGP, EIGRP, OSPF, ISIS, and whatever else. Mm-hmm. Those four, if that happens, and then you have like a security connection for just across the board for all different software-defined networks, it just becomes a standard.
Yeah.
Then you're probably golden. But if at any point you have to choose, like, because you choose this software, you're hammered into one routing protocol, or you have to use static routes.
Yeah.
Then your redistribution becomes a pain and all sorts of issues.
Exactly. That's just not feasible. I would be interested though in one extra one. I would really like to see a bunch of just incredibly talented software and network engineers sit down and make a routing protocol, like just a new one for software-defined networks, and keep all the other ones. The idea being, it's like, this is the greatest minds of today can think of how to do this routing on our current technology, and if you've got anything else that you have to do, like if you got any regular devices, you got standard traditional hardware, you can't use it, obviously, pick whatever your internal routing could be on those. But it would be interesting to see software-based routing that's not looking back at the protocols we've had before.
Yeah, well, so I understand, but man, there is so much politics in that. And
yes, there is. That is a pipe dream. That is not necessarily becoming a reality. While I am firm in believing that software networking is going to be the future long term, I will not comment and commit to a purely new routing protocol for software-defined networking. But it would be very nice, because once we hit that point, because I fear really we're going to hit a point long term, let's say 20 years from now, when almost everything is software-defined, but we're still relying on protocols from a hardware-defined era.
I don't think that is the ASICs of the situation, which are the hardware-defined things are not the problem, because routers are software driven.
Yeah,
they're not ASIC driven. So really, the routing protocols are not about hardware defined networking. The routing protocols are about having large sets of disparate networks that allow you to separate out that.
Yeah,
that
I know how routing protocols work. I know they're not stuck in on the router, but I guess one of the things we stick in because we have large hardware networks, because fleeting new networks is a long and laborious task. We have routing protocols that don't change much. We found a couple good ones. We got a good lot of mathematicians together to run through them, and they get small updates.
Well, EIGRP got and OSPF have gotten major updates in the last 3 years, major revision updates. Especially since EIGRP became open source, it's huge. The IPv6 ability, the way you organize it within the configuration modules and things like that, they're just the big updates to make it more manageable. But I get what you're saying. They're written more from the perspective of traditional networking than from software-defined networking. And there's going to have to be a transition on those routing protocols to update them to software-defined networking to be able to make them, or software-defined networking is going to have to somehow translate to that protocol.
Yeah.
So I get that.
That's just the thing I want to avoid over the long term, is that we don't get stuck in a situation that we see a lot of times as we start going into automation. Is that I don't want those routing protocols to be things that we cling on to or don't fully update when software networking comes in. Because I know you can update the routing protocols, but I don't want, as I'm getting into an older man, I'm thinking, okay, I've got 15 more years of this left. Man, EIGRP was everything when I got started, and now it looks like that's the thing that might be holding a little bit of this back.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think that minds like ours are working on these problems. They're definitely updating these protocols and things like that. But we're talking about complex networks. I don't know that we need new protocols, but the protocols have to be updated.
Yeah.
So, as a tangential topic, I got a question for you. I know the answer to it.
Okay.
I just want to see if you know the answer to it.
Okay.
Not that I want to embarrass you. I just think that this is a funny thing that I learned this week, and I think it would be great for other people to think about.
Okay.
So, can a router with no configuration, whether it's an HP router, Cisco router, Juniper router, whatever, can that route packets without having a configuration on it? And whatever your answer is, yes or no, why does it do that?
Ooh. So, okay. This is going to be a cheapo answer here. I want to say, yes, it can, because I know of some technologies that have to do something similar, but I fully deploy, I don't know how they do it.
Okay. So, my answer is going to be no. But so unlike software defined things, which always have a little bit of a configuration on them, a lot of and I'm talking about really enterprise grade routers, not the thing that you stick in your home network. They can't do it because so you can definitely get a WAN connection. It'll definitely pass traffic out, but it will not route packets from the internal LAN, because it doesn't have any way of knowing when you bring it up what it's going to pass at layer 3.
Yeah.
And I learned that this week. It's something that I already knew.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I know the communication talks at I think that the technologies I know work over L2 and not L3. Yeah.
So if it, MAC address based stuff at L2 totally will work without any sort of configuration on it. But that's all basic ASIC. I'm rhyming, but ASIC based hardware. You're not doing anything on top of that. So you can just throw a switch in a network and it'll work. Throw a router in a network, it won't.
Yeah.
And I was doing an experiment based off of something that somebody told me in a meeting. It was like, oh yeah, you should just be able to like plug your laptop in and plug the router in, and it just turn on.
That you totally can't do that.
Yeah,
right?
and I was like, you can't do that. And I thought about it, and I was like, well, this is why you can't do it. So for everybody out there, no, it doesn't work that way. And the reason it doesn't work that way is because without some little bit of configuration on it, we're talking about like no configuration, completely wiped it off.
Yeah.
Without some little bit of configuration on it, it doesn't know L3 where things are. So, and I'm talking about layer 3 for anybody that's confused about that. So layer 3 of the OSPI. OSI model, layer 3 of the OSI model.
I'll tell you, I'm glad you confirmed that. I was talking with that same guy earlier that day about removing configurations because he didn't think we would need them. And I was like, nope, don't do that, Jay. It gave me a heart attack just because of the way he said it.
Yep.
It's like, we should go run a script for that. And as this person does development, I was real quick like, let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
Definitely don't do that.
Problems aside, this is the end of our episode. So we're ending on a positive, hilarious note. Hopefully next episode we won't have our mics crap out halfway through a beautiful speech. Otherwise, this has been the end of Season 2, Episode 8, and we'll catch you next time.